Hey everyone, and welcome to WDIM News, my weekly podcast where I talk about sci-fi stuff and some other stuff. My name is Eric. Thank you very much for joining me today. This coming week is a big one in the sci-fi world because there will be two long-awaited releases on two separate mediums, as the 2-episode Season 4 premiere of Star Trek Lower Decks will take place on Thursday, September 7th, and the massive new spacefaring game, Starfield, will be released to the general public on Wednesday, September 6th. Also, don't forget, we have Star Trek Day, which will be taking place on Friday, September 8th. An event that will be very interesting, given that Hollywood is in the midst of an actor strike. So I want to talk about the upcoming season of Lower Decks, as well as some other news about the series. Then I would like to discuss Star Trek Strange New Worlds for a bit. We know that Season 3 is on hold until the writers and actor strike is over, but one of the producers on the series did offer up fans an update as to how close they were to filming before the strike hit, and what preparations they are currently taking for when the strike ends and how they can get back to work. I also want to discuss how successful the second season of the series continues to be, and this last bit of data even surprised me, because it took place after the release of a very divisive episode among fans. I also want to talk about what I would like to see in the next season of the series. Then, I will end the podcast by discussing the release of Starfield, along with details about my next live stream on the channel, which will take place this week. But before I get into all that, I want to thank you for clicking on this video and ask that you leave a like to help support the work that I do. Also, don't forget to subscribe for future videos. So, let's talk about Star Trek Lower Decks. That's right, we actually have new Star Trek to talk about. It's been about a month since Star Trek Strange New Worlds went off the air, and because of the actors and writers strike, we haven't had much else to talk about. So let's talk about Season 4 of Lower Decks. What you might not know is that they will be debuting with 2 episodes. I didn't even know this until I started research for this podcast. This Thursday on September 7th, we will be getting 2 episodes of Lower Decks, and they are reported to be named Tuvix and I Have No Bones, Yet I Must Flee. The episode title Tuvix is spelled Twovix. Obviously, that is to invoke the famous, or I should say infamous, Voyager episode Tuvix, in which the Talaxian Neelix was blended, I guess, with the Vulcan Tuvok because of a transporter malfunction, I believe. So we're obviously going to see something in the first episode of the season similar to that, probably 2 characters being melded together. If I had to guess, now the most obvious combination would be Mariner and Boimler because they're the main characters, but I don't think that's the way they're going to go because, for one, they're both humans, so it wouldn't be as interesting because, of course, in the Voyager episode, we had a Talaxian and a Vulcan. I think they're going to do something similar to that in this episode of Lower Decks. Given that it's 2, TWO and Vix, I think similar to Vixen, I think it could be 2 female characters, meaning perhaps Tendi and Mariner, or there will be a new female character added to the cast this season in a Vulcan named T'Lyn, who's appeared in a few episodes already. So I think maybe we will be getting a melding of her character with one of the main characters. That's a great way to join the show, as that character is being part of the main cast now, to meld her character with another character to make a new one. So I'm guessing that that's what we're going to get in the Season 4 premiere. The second episode, I Have No Bones, Yet I Must Flee. I thought maybe, there's some riddle about an egg where, I think the riddle goes, I have no arms and I have no legs, yet if you warm me, I will walk away. What am I? And it's an egg. I don't know if this is a reference to that riddle, but if it was, I'm guessing that this is the birth of something. Maybe Badgie is coming back in another form. I'm going to talk about Badgie here in a second, but I don't really know. The episode titles on Lower Decks seem to be a little bit more nonsensical than the other Star Trek episode titles that we're used to. So really, this episode could be anything. Another thing to consider during the 4th season of Lower Decks will be how much the Strange New Worlds crossover affected Boimler and Mariner. Now, I'm pretty sure that happened in between Season 3 and Season 4 of Lower Decks. And there is a trailer out there where the characters reference the event. So it may happen in between a couple episodes, but I really think it will be explained away in exposition, probably in the season premiere. And the characters will reminisce about it, but then they'll remind each other that they can't talk about it. And that'll kind of be their way of kind of writing it off and not really talking about it again. But it'll be interesting to see if that adventure affected the 2 characters. Both characters had very different experiences. Boimler was kind of all built up to, be in this era. and then saw that it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, and he was worried about changing the past. And Mariner, I think, was more cool about it and got to meet Uhura. I think that might make her more of a real officer than less of a character that doesn't really care about what she does. So it'll be interesting to see what those characters develop into now that they've had that experience. I already mentioned this briefly, but they will be adding a new character to the Lower Decks cast in T'Lyn. She appeared in at least 2 episodes. I want to say maybe 3. I can't remember the name of the actress that is voicing her, but I know that the actress actually cosplayed as this character that she created in her head years ago at conventions. I'm really rooting for her because I just think that's so cool that like she created this character out of nothing and now she's Star Trek canon. I would just be over the moon if I was able to do something like that. And I'm sure she is too. So I think that's really cool. And I'm rooting for that character. Obviously, a Vulcan has a much different personality than the 4 characters that we already know on Lower Decks. So it'll be interesting to see how she affects their dynamic. And I also mentioned this character for a second, but I'm wondering how Badgie will return. You know, he was a part of the season finale for season 3. If you don't remember, he was scooped up by some unseen force. So obviously he is going to be returning as a villain. Agamus is out there too. That was the robot that was voiced by Jeffrey Combs. There's also Peanut Hamper. So it seems that Lower Decks is kind of building up this cadre of really weird villains that kind of really fit this show, but wouldn't fit any other show. So I think they're going towards a team up. Lower Decks has had these really good like cinematic episodes, and I wouldn't put it past them to do like a cinematic team up Avengers style episode with all the villains that they've created so far, like Badgie and Agamus. And maybe they'll create another one this season. I think that would be really cool, and I do think that that's where that's going. So maybe we will see that this season as well. But let me know, how excited are you for season 4 of Lower Decks? I'm very excited. I can't wait to see it. It was my favorite new Star Trek show until this last season of Strange New Worlds. And I just really enjoyed the last season of Strange New Worlds. Nothing against Lower Decks. I just think it was great. And it even included characters from Lower Decks. So that kind of put it over the moon for me. I do have a review of the season up on my channel. If you'd like to check that out, I'll put it in the description below as well. But yeah, what do you think of Lower Decks? And are you excited for the upcoming 4th season? Now, if you do not remember what happened in the 3rd season of Lower Decks, or if you missed it somehow, it is available for free on a couple of different streaming services. So I noticed this a couple of days ago that season 3 of Lower Decks is now available for free on YouTube. I don't know if this is only the US. A lot of times it only is. So if you're an international viewer and you can't see it, I apologize. It's definitely worth buying. It's definitely worth seeing. But right now, I know it is available on YouTube for free. Just go to the Paramount Plus YouTube page. I'll put a link to it on the site below because it is a little weird to get to. Like if it comes up in your requested videos, it's obviously very easy to get to. But if you actually go on the Paramount Plus YouTube page, I think it's weird. You have to really find the playlist and it's kind of buried. So I will link that in the description below. But I think it's pretty cool that you can catch up if you haven't yet. And if for some reason you don't have Paramount Plus, but if you're a Lower Decks fan and if you're looking forward to Thursday, you probably already have Paramount Plus and you've been able to watch Lower Decks for some time now. But just in case you haven't, season 3 is now available for free on YouTube. It is also available for free on Amazon Prime Video. This one I know is just in the US, and I know it's for a limited time only. I think it's also available on Pluto, which is somehow also connected to Paramount. So now you can watch the 3rd season of Lower Decks on all those services. I highly recommend it. I mean, especially if you're going to watch the 4th season on Thursday. And now that we've talked about the past and the present of Lower Decks, let's talk about the future a little bit, because we know that a 5th season of the series has already been greenlit by Paramount. Now, I've mentioned this a few times already. We're in the midst of a writer's strike, but the show was renewed in March of 2023, which was almost 2 months before the writer's strike was announced. So it is possible that at least some episodes have been written for season 5, if not all of it, because I know a lot of these creators, if they have a good inkling that their series is going to be renewed, like if it's been an automatic renewal for a couple of seasons, like Lower Decks has, frankly, I think that they just create them and then they just expect to be renewed, or they know they're going to be renewed and they just announce the news to the public, like in March, that Lower Decks is being renewed, but they might have told the creators and the producers of Lower Decks back, months before that the series had been renewed. It is possible that anywhere from a few episodes to the entire season of Lower Decks Season 5 has been written. If that's the case, there is a good chance that Lower Decks may be the next new Star Trek that we see after the series finale of Star Trek Discovery in 2024. Because, and I've mentioned this a couple times before on my podcast, the actor strike does not affect people who do voice acting on animated series. So I believe that if the 5th season of Lower Decks has been written, they can produce it, they can animate it, and they can do the voice work. I think it may get a little complicated with some of the actors because, for instance, Brad Boimler is voiced by Jack Quaid, who is a very prominent actor. He has a lot of parts. He's on The Boys. He's on other things as well. And Tawny Newsome is also a writer. So are they now in a weird situation where they can't be on Lower Decks because they're also doing, acting and writing and things like that? But I do know that certain actors in certain series do get waivers from the union. Like I just saw, I think it was 3 series on AMC got waivers from the SAG union because AMC is somehow not involved in the producer negotiations. I don't know. Everything is complicated with this writer's strike, but somehow I know 2 Walking Dead series and I think another series got waivers and they can produce their show during the strike because AMC is somehow not as involved in the strike as the other producers. But anyway, there's a really good chance that season 5 of Lower Decks will come before the 3rd season of Strange New Worlds, which would kind of suck because it wouldn't line up with how we got the shows. But getting new Star Trek, any kind of new Star Trek is good, and especially Star Trek that I like, and Lower Decks is awesome. So maybe, we'll get news soon that season 5 will be released in the middle of 2024, something like that, and that those actors are going back to work. I don't know. I could be wrong, and maybe Tawny Newsome and the other actors are not going to be going back to work because they're going to stand in solidarity. Maybe the show is going to get a waiver. I really don't know. But I think there's a good chance that Star Trek Lower Decks could be an exception, and we could get more Star Trek sooner rather than later in regards to that series. I think that's interesting. Anything I hear that's definite about season 5 of Lower Decks, I will definitely let you know. And then there's one other thing, Star Trek, that's happening this week, and that is Star Trek Day on September 8th. And this is how the network Paramount has described it. Join Paramount Plus, the CBS television network, CBS Studios, and fans from around the world for the annual Star Trek Day global celebration on Friday, September 8th. This year's special program is hosted by Star Trek Lower Decks Jerry O'Connell on Paramount Plus and features special Star Trek Lower Decks screenings across the US, the UK, and Canada in anticipation of the upcoming 4th season, special airings of Strange New Worlds on CBS, and more. Now, you'll notice that they are including Star Trek Lower Decks Jerry O'Connell, and that already, I think, is a sign of how Lower Decks is a little bit different than other series because they're animated, because I know that any series right now that's live action, actors can't promote it. So if they've got Jerry O'Connell promoting Lower Decks on this program, then either he got a waiver or Lower Decks is different and we will get season 5 before we get season 3 of Strange New Worlds. The other little bit that they have about Star Trek Day is that it will also feature a celebration of 50 years of Star Trek animation, which makes sense because we're going to have the premiere of Lower Decks, which is an animated show, and will air the first 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds Season 1 on CBS at 8 p.m. Eastern and Pacific Time. So if you are still watching TV, you can see the first 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds on CBS. I'm going to talk about Strange New Worlds here in a bit. But if you are wondering, because I was, why September 8th is Star Trek Day? Well, on September 8th, 1966, The Man Trap was the first original series episode to air, even though it was the 6th one that was actually filmed. So there's always an argument when you say, oh, this was the first episode of the original series, because it doesn't matter if you say Where No Man Has Gone Before, it doesn't matter if you say The Man Trap, and it doesn't matter if you say The Cage. You're wrong. Somebody's going to be like, no, you're wrong. It's this because of this. Blah. So yeah, don't ever get in an argument about what the first episode of Star Trek ever was. But I think that's cool that, they do this Star Trek Day. In the past, we've had a lot of big announcements. Some of those announcements never came to be. I think one of the movies or something around one of the movies was announced on one of the Star Trek days. I think that was the one where they announced the 4th movie and all the actors from the J.J. Abrams universe were like, what? We have a new movie coming out? Nobody told me. But yeah, hopefully we get something a little more concrete this year and we get some news about Star Trek. I think it's very possible they might announce the plans for season 5 of Lower Decks during the celebration, because there will be an emphasis on animation, and Lower Decks is really the best that Star Trek has right now in regards to an animated series. I know there are Star Trek Prodigy fans out there, but the fact remains that as of right now, there is no venue for Star Trek Prodigy, and Star Trek Lower Decks is just getting started with their 4th season. So you can't really argue those facts. But anyway, that's what Star Trek has planned this week for the premiere of Lower Decks as well as Star Trek Day. So let me know, are you excited for Star Trek Day? Will you be watching any of the events? Like I said, in the past, they've had some cool stuff, but because of the actor strike and the writer strike, they just can't have anything really going on, because besides the actors that are only working on the animated series, nobody can promote what they have going on because of union strike rules. So it's going to be one of those things that's affected by the strike. It's, too bad, but there's a lot of things going on that are affected by the strike that are way worse than a bad Star Trek Day. But let me know, will you be watching for Star Trek Day, and are you excited for what will be announced? So now let's take a minute to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, as I mentioned, it's been about a month, I think maybe 3 weeks, since the 2nd season finale aired. I did a review of that episode and the season, and I gave it a glowing review. I was a big fan of what they did in season 2 of Strange New Worlds. I was a big fan of the risks they took. I was a big fan of the way they developed a lot of characters. Really, I think my only concern was the use of James Kirk, as he is not a member of the main cast, but he keeps popping up, and whenever he pops up, he takes away time from one of the other main cast, which is a shame because I want to learn more about all of them. Not just the characters we know like Spock and Chapel, but really like Mbenga and Ortegas. Those characters are really blossoming into really interesting characters, and I want to know more about them. And every time we have James Kirk, that takes away screen time from them. And also now we've got Scotty. I'm going to talk about Scotty in a second. But if you have another member of the Enterprise that's not on the Enterprise yet, how much, screen time is going to be taken away from like La'an? How are they going to manage that? And I also spoke about in one of my past podcasts that there is a chance that season 3 of Strange New Worlds could be more than 10 episodes, since Star Trek Strange New Worlds is so popular, and I'm going to talk about that right now, that because of this popularity and because of the strike, the studio Paramount may want to produce more episodes at a single time and get more of this series out there to the public. Since Star Trek Strange New Worlds has been so well received by fans, the studio Paramount may want to produce anywhere up to 20 episodes of Strange New Worlds for season 3, not only because of the strike, but because there's so much buzz around this series now, they want to get more out to fans. And instead of having 5 series out there, like we had a couple of years ago, 5 Star Trek series, now only having a few, but more episodes of those series, I think that makes a lot of sense. So why is this happening? Well, a big reason are the ratings for season 2 of Strange New Worlds. And these come from Nielsen. And I've been talking about them for a few weeks now. And it looks like once again, Star Trek Strange New Worlds has jumped into the top 10 original streaming program chart for the week. Now, this would be the week of July 31st through August 6th. And if you don't remember, during this week is when the musical episode Subspace Rhapsody was released. So I was really surprised that not only did Star Trek Strange New Worlds make the top 10 list again, because a lot of people didn't like this episode, but it actually jumped up. Like the week before, it was at spot 9 out of 10. And then this week, it's now 7. So I thought that was kind of crazy that maybe so many people watched it because so many people were talking about it. But I think that is pretty interesting, that an episode that was a big swing for Strange New Worlds and could have really broke the show. I mean, if they didn't do that episode well, it would have broke the season completely, and nobody would have thought about anything else in the 2nd season. They just would have thought about how bad the musical episode is. And a lot of people are saying that already. I don't think that, but it does seem like a lot of people did tune in to see what all the hubbub was about. And another thing that's interesting about Strange New Worlds is that the series continues to compete and even beat original programming from streaming services with significantly more subscribers like Amazon Prime Video and Hulu. So there's more people watching Strange New Worlds in a smaller pot of subscribers. That's a really good sign. This is the 6th time Strange New Worlds has ranked on the Nielsen chart in the first 8 weeks of its season 2 run, which includes 1 week when 2 episodes premiered. Earlier in the year, Star Trek Picard ranked on the same chart 3 times during its 10-episode run. Since Nielsen started measuring Paramount Plus data earlier this year, only the 2 Star Trek shows and the Yellowstone prequel 1923 have appeared on the original top 10 chart. So when I talk about Paramount wanting to produce 20 episodes rather than 10 of Strange New Worlds, this right here is why. If this series is far and beyond the most popular IP that they have, they're going to want to produce and produce and produce to get more subscribers onto their streaming service, because that's what it's all about these days. And this last bit of data really surprised me. The soundtrack of the original music from Subspace Rhapsody was released on the same day as the episode and quickly rose to number 1 on the Apple iTunes album chart. It remained on the top 100 chart all through the month of August. So I guess a lot of people like that episode. I mean, like I said, there are a lot of videos out there about how, oh, this is the worst Star Trek. You broke blah, blah, blah. This is bastardizing Gene Roddenberry's vision, all that nonsense. I guess they were wrong. I guess a lot of people are saying, no, we actually like Strange New Worlds and we like the chances the series is taking. I think that it's great that when there's a series that I appreciate, it's appreciated by the general public as much as I appreciate it. It doesn't always happen like that. But I've talked about before how Strange New Worlds and Star Trek as a franchise has to break into the mainstream. I don't really think it's in the mainstream right now. A lot of people don't know about Star Trek Strange New Worlds, even though it is this popular. I think it's a big deal that Captain Pike is one of the faces, on the Paramount Plus ad where you see it in Walmart or wherever you see it. And that's big for Star Trek. So the fact that Strange New Worlds is so well received during its second season, that's great. And that will push 4 more episodes when the 3rd season of the series is done. But let me know, what do you think about this news? Does this make you more excited for Strange New Worlds? Do you still think what you think, and either you think that it's not good Star Trek, or you have come around and you do think it's good Star Trek? You may not think it's the best season of Star Trek like I do. That's okay. I'm not saying anybody has to believe what I believe all the time. But I think that if you just look at it and it's as its own thing, not just as Star Trek, but just as a season of television, it's just great. All the tonal shifts, all the characters that come in, all the things that happen, the way everything kind of ties together. They even have, the event episode with the crossover. And I just think it's great. But let me know, what do you think of Star Trek Strange New Worlds? And are you excited to hear about season 3? Well, if you are excited about season 3, stay tuned because I have something to tell you right now. They can't film anything, obviously, for season 3 because of the writing and acting strike, and we really don't know what's going on. But this past week, Trek Movie did do an interview with one of the producers of Strange New Worlds, Chris Fisher, and he was able to give us an update on season 3. Now, because the directors came to an agreement with the producers and they are not on strike, that's why people like this Chris Fisher can talk about season 3 and nobody else on Strange New Worlds can. I know it's silly. I'm just explaining it to you because you might be like, wait a minute, didn't Eric just say nobody can talk about season 3? How is this guy talking about season 3? That's why. Anyway, moving on. So Chris Fisher, one of the producers on Strange New Worlds, had this to say about where they were filming season 3 of Strange New Worlds when the strikes hit. I was going to direct the premiere episode. I had storyboarded pretty much the entire first episode. That's how close we were to starting shooting. We were 1 day away from flying the actors in. We were like, do we fly the actors in? That's when it went above my pay scale. So literally the day that they were going to start filming season 3 is when the strike hit. That sucks. Like, how bad is that timing? But it does kind of tell us fans how close they are to being able to film. This obviously means that the season is written, so we don't have to worry about episodes being written before they can start filming. That's great. They can really hit the ground running. And I kind of feel like when the strike is over, it'll be coming like a wave. Like, it's not going to just all of a sudden be like, hey, everything's solved in 1 day and we're going back to work. I think it'll be like incremental, like, oh, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then finally everything is agreed on and we're going back to work. It looks like whenever that happens, they will be ready to hit the ground running with season 3 of Strange New Worlds. Fisher also teased that fans can expect Star Trek Strange New Worlds to take even more chances than they did in the second season. And this is what he had to say about that. Every one of the words up there scares the shit out of me. But yeah, they're big swings. They're definitely big swings. So obviously he knows that he has to put up or shut up. They did all these things in season 2. Now fans are going to kind of expect something crazy in season 3. And I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But it's obvious that the producer here knows that he kind of set himself up for that by, taking these big swings in season 2. Now he's got to take even bigger swings in season 3 and still pull them off. So it will be very interesting to see how they are able to do that. So speaking of what they might be able to do in season 3, I wanted to talk about what we kind of want to see in season 3 of Strange New Worlds, as well as some of the biggest unanswered questions. I know I kind of did this right after the season finale, but I've had a couple of weeks now, so I kind of updated my own mental list. So I kind of wanted to work it out with you guys and see what you had to say. My first kind of thing was, what genres will Strange New Worlds season 3 tackle next? I.e., what other types of Trek stories will they try next? In season 2, the biggest swing was the musical episode, which had never been done before. But every other episode was very much like a Star Trek episode that we had seen before, like the courtroom thing, like the time travel thing, the crossover, all these kind of things that we've seen before on either this series or other series that Strange New Worlds was definitely able to pull off. So there's obviously a lot of things out there that they haven't done yet. So what could we see? I mean, could we see a Western style episode? We already know that Pike is very attached to horses. In the series premiere of Strange New Worlds, he was on a farm in Montana or Wyoming or something with a horse. So he obviously would be all in for a Western style adventure. Will we see a mirror universe adventure? Now, of course, by proxy, this show is associated with Discovery, and Discovery kind of beat the Mirror Universe over the head for a little bit. And we also have Philippa Georgiou out there who's from the Mirror Universe. We don't know where she is. She might be back in this timeline. We don't know. But are we going to see another venture into the Mirror Universe? So the first time we saw the Mirror Universe was on the original series, but it would be cool to see that the Enterprise actually went to the Mirror Universe before Kirk's crew went over there. We could also see a Stuck in the Holodeck episode. That's something that the Next Generation did a lot, and we've seen other series do that as well. I know that holodeck technology is not used by Starfleet in this time period, but we saw on Star Trek Enterprise that other alien species did have this technology. So it's possible that we could get like a Stuck in the Holodeck episode, Dixon Hill, or we could do like a DS9 Our Man Bashir style episode. That would be great. I could definitely see Star Trek Strange New Worlds doing an episode like Our Man Bashir from DS9. If you're not familiar with that episode, it's a great one. We could see some kind of Stuck in the Holodeck episode, or we could see an episode with Q. I know we just saw Q on Star Trek Picard, but there's no reason we can't see Q with the crew of the Enterprise. There's also the possibility of the crew meeting Trelane. Yes, I know how to pronounce that character's name. I pronounced it wrong in a prior video, and I got butchered in the comment section about it. So everybody who butchered me, now you can sleep at night. I can say that character's name right. His name is Trelane. Maybe we'll see an episode with Trelane. That was a very interesting character from the original series. Maybe we'll see a ghost episode like that one from the Next Generation with Dr. Crusher. We could see something like that. I'm very interested to see what kind of big swings we will see with season 3. I think if they have 20 episodes, that gives them a lot more chances to do something. They did a really good job in season 2, so hopefully they can do the same in season 3. Another big question on every fan's mind who saw the finale of Strange New Worlds is, will Scotty remain on the Enterprise as an engineer? We got the introduction of the character in the finale. We saw that he did have a past relationship with Pelia. Pelia was his teacher back at the Academy. So it is possible that he could serve under Pelia on the Enterprise. But I believe in the original canon, Scotty stated that he served on at least 11 ships beside the Enterprise or before the Enterprise. Maybe with him being so young, they might have him serve on quite a few more ships before coming to the Enterprise. So maybe he will be another one of these returning characters that Pelia keeps up with. Like maybe we'll see him on a view screen from time to time with them talking to each other. Because I really would like another season with Pelia. Carol Kane really just scratched the surface with that character. I think she was pretty well liked by the fans. She's definitely a different type of Starfleet officer. It was also very cool to tie her in to the time travel episode. So I would like to see more with that character. Also, there's the fact that Martin Quinn, the actor who played Scotty, has been very well received as the character. He is the first Scottish actor to play the character Scotty, and a lot of fans have latched onto that. So I think it is possible to see Martin Quinn return as Scotty on Strange New Worlds, but I doubt it will be as a cast member next season. I could be wrong, especially if they get 20 episodes. But I think he'll be more like Kirk and show up here and there. Maybe Pelia will have a problem and she'll be talking with Scotty to help him through it or help her through it. And then in that way, he'll learn more about the Enterprise and start his fascination with the Enterprise because we know how much he loves the ship. So it would be cool to see those seeds get planted with, Scotty falling in love with the Enterprise. And now that we've opened the door with Scotty, when will we see Sulu? When will we see Bones? Or when will we see Chekhov appear in Star Trek Strange New Worlds? Now, a viewer reminded me that in the original canon, Chekhov was 19 when he joined the Enterprise. They changed that for J.J. Abrams, and I just forgot that, or maybe I didn't even know that in the J.J. Abrams universe, Chekhov is like 16, but in the original universe, Chekhov was 19. Why that makes a difference is because this season or this series of Strange New Worlds takes place about 5 years before James Kirk takes over. So if Chekhov was 16, then that would make him 11 now. So I don't think there's any chance that we would see Chekhov. But the fact that he's 19 when he joins the Enterprise, maybe we'll see him as a 14-year-old, but I still don't think that of the characters that we will see, I don't think we'll see him because he's just so young. We might see him if they go back to Earth or something, but I really doubt that Chekhov is the one we'll see next. My money is on Sulu because on the original series, it was established that before Sulu joined the Enterprise as the helmsman, he joined as a botanist. He wore a blue uniform. Maybe we will see that on Strange New Worlds because we never really saw Sulu in that capacity. It would also mean that Ortegas wouldn't have to leave the ship, which is awesome because I think we still need to learn a lot more about that character. Nurse Chapel is leaving the Enterprise, at least briefly, to join this fellowship unless it happens off screen. Even if it happens off screen, this would leave the opportunity for Sulu to join in the sciences division, possibly as a botanist or as whatever. This also gives the show the opportunity to introduce Bones because if Nurse Chapel is off the ship, then they may want another medical officer on the ship, and that gives a chance for Leonard McCoy to join the Enterprise. But I do think it makes more sense for them to introduce Bones on the Farragut serving with Kirk, because Bones and Kirk has such a good relationship, it would make more sense for them to serve together before they serve on the Enterprise. And that's why my money is still on Sulu being the next character to be seen on Strange New Worlds. Will it happen next season? Possibly. I think that one of the best parts of the introduction of Scotty was that nobody expected it. So if they just do it in every finale from now on, I don't think it will be as special. They did it kind of sneaky with Scotty also because in the season 1 finale, they teased him. If you remember, we saw an alternate future and we heard Scotty off screen talk to Spock, but we didn't see him. So maybe they'll tease Sulu and then we'll see him in a future episode. I don't know. But I do think that we will see the rest of the Enterprise crew under Kirk on Strange New Worlds eventually. Maybe not Chekhov, but we will see many of the characters sooner probably rather than later. Another big plot line that's out there and I think does have impact on when we will see a new character is, will Starfleet investigate Dr. Mbenga for the Klingon ambassador's death? This was towards the end of season 2 where Dr. Mbenga killed a defector that was a Klingon ambassador, and it was because he was a liar and basically just a really, really bad guy. Season 2 definitely changed the audience's perception of Dr. Mbenga, and it did that for Pike as well. They had a very contentious argument really towards the end of that episode, and I think it's pretty obvious that Captain Pike now thinks differently about Mbenga than he did before that episode. So will this open the door for Mbenga to be removed as the chief medical officer of the Enterprise and allow for Bones to not just join the crew, but also take over as the chief medical officer? If Nurse Chapel is gone and they get Bones on the ship, and then all of a sudden they don't trust Mbenga anymore to be the chief medical officer, maybe since Bones is now on the ship, they decide that he's such a good officer that they can promote him and drop Mbenga down to just like a normal doctor. So we could see that here on the Enterprise in the next couple of seasons of Strange New Worlds. I think that's very likely, especially if Nurse Chapel does leave the ship. And then finally, what other Star Trek aliens/characters will the series bring back, similar to what they did with the Gorn? And I think the most interesting alien that could be added to this show are the Cardassians, because really we didn't know anything about them until The Next Generation, and they even looked weird. If you remember, they had mustaches or handlebar mustaches or something. They looked really funky. And then they were obviously big villains during Deep Space Nine. But it's kind of interesting. The Cardassians have been mentioned a couple of times in regard to Captain Pike and Strange New Worlds. For one, during Pike's first appearance, it was mentioned that Pike's got a couple of commendations from Cardassia. So it seems that Cardassia and the Federation are allies during this time period. And also in one of the last episodes of season 2, Uhura mentioned that she was studying the Cardassian language. So it's kind of weird that they have brought that race up since we did not see them during the TOS era. So I think it would be really cool to kind of reinvent the Cardassians and bring them back. Maybe half of them are good, but we start to see them kind of slink back into the characters that we see during the Deep Space Nine era, where they're just militaristic and they're not really people that you can trust. Maybe we'll kind of see that kind of evolution during this series. But there are other alien species and characters that we could see. The Tellarites, I think, are another alien species that they're one of the founding members of the Federation, but we really do not know that much about them. Star Trek Prodigy has a main character that's a Tellarite, and I think that's the most we've learned about that alien species from any series. So it would be cool to know more about the Tellarites, kind of like we learned a little bit more about the Andorians during the first season of Strange New Worlds after not knowing much about them. It would be cool to know more about the Tellarites. I talked about Trelane already. I think it would be cool to introduce him to the Enterprise crew. Cybok is another character that could be introduced. I mean, we saw the back of him on one episode during season 1, and we know of his existence in this time period now. So will he be back? Will he be a character that's featured in an episode? And I think that would be cool because we don't know much about that character. And when it comes to characters that we've seen on TOS, you got to mention Yeoman Rand. We haven't heard anything about Janice Rand yet. And I know that she's young during the original series era, so she might be another character that's just like in high school right now. But it would be cool to see her kind of join the cast too, because she is one of the most beloved kind of side characters from the original series. But let me know, what do you want to see in a season 3 of Strange New Worlds? Do you want to see 20 episodes? Do you like any of the ideas that I kind of threw out there? Or do you have other episodes from the pantheon of Star Trek that you would like to see done on Strange New Worlds? I would love to hear them. Let me know your ideas in the comments, and maybe I will bring them up in a future video. Speaking of future videos, I would like to discuss now a game that I've been talking about for a few months, and that is Starfield. Now, before you turn off your podcast because you don't care about video games, if you are a fan of sci-fi, you should be into this game. If you haven't ever played a video game, maybe you won't be into it. But if you've ever been into video games, this might be a good time to get back in, because this seems like the space game that I know that I've been waiting for a long time, that a lot of people still play Star Trek Online. I think that game, it does some things well, but there are definitely things that I think they haven't improved over the years, and they've had a long time to improve them. I think that this game, Starfield, is going to be a much more immersive, much better game, and I'm very excited for it. So if you don't know what Starfield is the first new intellectual property by Bethesda Game Studios in over 25 years. It has been described by director Todd Howard as Skyrim in space. Todd Howard is not only responsible for Skyrim, but he's also responsible for Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. Starfield is an action role-playing video game. Players can switch between a first-person and third-person perspective anytime in the game. Starfield features an open world in the form of an area within the Milky Way galaxy containing both fictional and non-fictional planetary systems, with players being able to land on more than 1,000 planets and an unspecified number of moons and space stations. Now, I think that it's kind of funny that it's both fictional and non-fictional planetary systems. I can imagine a lot of kids that play this, and then they go into school and they think that some of these planets are real. So it'll be fun to see like if that kind of happens in real life. But also, the game will generate the terrain and the alien flora and fauna of a planet depending on the star of its system and its atmosphere, as well as the locations of interest as the player approaches a planet. The largest city in the game, New Atlantis, is the largest fictional city Bethesda has ever developed. And Fallout is a huge game, so the fact that this is larger than anything they developed in Fallout is a pretty big deal. As the player explores the game world, they will encounter various non-playable characters, some of whom may join the player's crew. Such NPCs may aid the player in combat, carry items or during confrontations, or speak to other NPCs on the player's behalf. And some may comment on choices the player makes. The player may station crew members at any of their constructed outposts. Each companion character has their own unique skills and abilities. Some recruitable NPCs are able to be romanced by the player. So this is something that Fallout has had before, I know. I know that Star Trek Online has this too with like crew members. I really dig that. I like kind of building a crew and not just building your character, but also building a crew that supports them. The early reviews have been pretty positive. Whenever you have a big game like this, you're always going to have people that say like it's too big or it's too confusing. I don't get it, because they're looking for shoot 'em ups and stuff like that, and that's fine. But generally, Starfield has received positive reviews from critics who praised its open-ended gameplay, combat, visuals, music, and technical performance, which was also considered as an improvement over previous Bethesda titles, though responses to its story and exploration were mixed. I have read some reviews about Starfield. I stay away from spoilers, but I have seen some gameplay and heard some people talk about it. And I think a lot of it is what you hear about from a lot of games is, do you play the main quest? Do you play the side quests? Just like stuff like that. But I do think that the fact that it's so immersive, it will turn some fans on and turn some fans off, because some fans just want to just be in a game, and some fans just want to log in and collect, gadgets and stuff like that. So I think that if you are into a fully immersive MMORPG, you're going to love Starfield, and that's why I am so pumped for it. And because I'm so pumped for it, I'm actually going to do a live stream of me playing the game this week on the channel. I'm going to do it on Thursday, and that way, since Lower Decks is also being released on Thursday, we can talk about the first 2 episodes of Lower Decks. I will say no spoilers for people that haven't seen the episodes yet, but we'll kind of just talk about whatever, or you can just watch me play the game. I know that when most people start a game brand new, and that's what I'm going to do, I'm going to start this game from scratch. I mean, I'm going to download it so you guys don't have to watch like the bar go from like 11%, 12%, but I won't start a new game. I will wait until I do the live stream. And I won't spend the first hour just creating a new character. I already learned from watching other reviews that you can change your character at some point later in the game. So I'll just go over like the new character dynamics, and I'll make a quick character and I'll start the game. So we're not just doing one thing for an hour, because they said that you can literally spend like 10 hours just creating a character, and I don't want to do that. I don't think anybody wants to watch me do that. So if you are interested in watching a live stream and maybe seeing this game or just talking about Star Trek, just, tune in on Thursday. I'll be releasing an ad about it later in the week. So look out for my community page. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you are, because then you'll definitely get a notification when the live stream begins. I also want to mention that I had to buy a new video card to make this game work while also live streaming. So if you want to donate to the channel, I'll have the thanks button up there, and you can donate a couple bucks for me getting this so we can watch it on live stream. So I hope you will join us, and it'll be a lot of fun. The last live stream I did was a lot of fun. More people showed up than I expected. I was doing Star Trek Resurgence, which I thought was an okay game, but I'm way more excited for this game. So I think it's going to be really cool. So I hope you can join me, watch this new game, Starfield, see why it's going to be so cool. If you have no interest in it, or if you don't really know what it's about, hey, you can watch me play and maybe you'll get into it just from seeing what I do. And if not, we can talk about Star Trek. We talk about Lower Decks. We can talk about Strange New Worlds. We can talk about, the writer's strike, whatever you guys want to talk about. We can talk about my new channel, which I would love to talk about, High Fidelity. You should definitely check that out if you haven't yet. So yeah, let me know. Are you a fan of Starfield? Will you be purchasing it? Will you be joining me on my live stream? I hope you will. I hope to see you on Thursday. But let me know, are you psyched for Starfield, and will you be playing the game when it comes out? Well, that is all I have this time, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching, but please don't forget to hit that like button right now before you go, and I will see you next time on What Did I Miss?